a good example of what I'm talking about is last month, the month of April. It ended up being exactly right on average. And I know from looking at the data that that doesn't happen very often. You might have temperatures a tenth of a degree off or 0.4 or a degree above or below, but it's rare that you have a temperature that's right at what the average should be. So I had that information. I wanted to see when was the last time that happened. And as I'm looking at the information, I noticed that even though there could be months in which the temperature was at average, for the most part, the high and the low usually were above or below average at different rates. They would average out though. So what I'm saying is you could have a month that was right at average, but the high temperature was 3 above average and the low temperature was 3 degrees below average. What made April of this year so interesting, it was not only was the overall temperature right at average, but the high and low were almost right at the average, which is very rare. So this is something you'd have to actually go through all the data in order to find out. This isn't data that's like readily available. I mean, the readily available data is basically high and low, and you have to decide for yourself how you're going to look at it. And also another report that I'm going to be issuing shortly is I was curious to see what had been the largest and the smallest swings in daily temperature. Usually there's about what's called a diurnal variation. There's a difference of about 14 degrees between the high and low. But there, I was curious to see what the extremes are. So by looking through data over the past 40 years, I found that the swings are anywhere from, there have been one day out of all the years I looked at that had a 1 degree difference in the high and low, and there have been a number of days that had a difference of about 40 degrees. What I noticed, the pattern that was developing, is that in this century, the differences between high and low are getting smaller and smaller, which is has been attributed to climate change. And so you used to see more instances of there being like a 15 to 20 degree difference between high and low. And now you're seeing that's rare, and you're actually seeing more and more smaller differences, like between 11 and 12 degrees. And a lot of the change, though, is because of the low temperatures are getting warmer. The high temperatures really aren't going as much. It's the low temperatures. So it's really rewarding when you could see some of the things that you read about in science journals about global warming. You actually see it borne out in the actual data.